Okay. Okay, first, before we start, I don't see her on yet, but our class today is being sponsored by Carol Racklin Siegel in memory of her mother. Oh, thank you, Carol. And different Carol, Carol Racklin Siegel, and her mother's name was Miral Bat Moshe. And God willing, all of our Torah learning and everything that we are doing today should be an aliyah for her neshama. So that's
Amen.
to thank Carol, and again to also offer to any of you who, if you would like to sponsor a class, you can go to theje.com/Ellen, ELLYN, scroll down, and there'll be the payment area, and you can choose whatever you would like to do. And now, before we start, we'll say our blessing. And then, Carol, thank you for holding up that picture. I'll have you hold it up again in just a minute. So thank you. I would do with my phone, but my phone is upstairs. So thank you. You can be our audiovisual person. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Welcome to all of you. Shana Tova. And so happy to see you. And now that we have finished Yom Kippur, we go right into preparing for the holiday, the wonderful holiday of Sukkot, which begins on Friday night with the beginning of Shabbos. And as soon as Carol gets on here, I'm going to just say that we announced, hi, Carol. I just want to tell you, we just announced that the class was being sponsored by you in memory of your wonderful mother, Miral Bat Moshe. And I still remember sitting with you at shul after when she passed away. And so a lot has happened in all of these years, and her memory should be an aliyah for her neshama. So thank you very much for sponsoring for us. Carol lives in Efrat, so she's here in Israel with me, so which is really very special. Okay, so we go right into Sukkot. What I'd like to do today is to help us is bringing 7 ideas to share, one for each of the days of Sukkot. So you have 7 things, different things to think about, and some of those 7 things have 7 things that go with them. So if you want to make yourself a chart, you can, or you can look them up. I wouldn't worry about copious notes or anything, just to have these things in mind to hopefully make our holiday even more happy. So we're going to start, since Carol is very graciously holding up a picture. Carol Plotka's screen is holding up the picture of our sukkah, which I sent out in the email. And so I wanted to talk about that as part of step number 1 of the first idea for sukkahs. So if you notice in the picture that we have a wooden top, it's a pergola, and the beams at the top are wood. And then you can see a white railing that's glass beneath, and then it's completely open to the air at the above it. So it's a glass railing, open air, and then wood beams at the top. Thank you, Carol. That's perfect. And the question is, how can that be a sukkah? And we're going to talk about, and what makes me happy about this being a sukkah. So our learning today comes primarily from the teachings of Rav Kook, based on the Gemaras, written by Rabbi Hanan Morrison, a book about Rav Kook's writings, and also from the book of that I have of Nativos Shalom from the Slonim Rebbe. So those are the ideas that come from there, but they're also well sourced, and so that's what I wanted to share with you. Okay, so the question is, some people said to me, I didn't know you could have glass walls for a sukkah. So the answer is, the walls can be made out of anything, as long as they don't flap around. So if you have fabric walls, they have to be tight so that they don't flap. But the wall can be made out of metal, it can be made out of wood, it can be made out of glass, it can be made out of plastic, it can be made out of anything. It also doesn't even have to be solid in the part that's the wall. So our sukkah that we had in Denver was lattice. The walls were completely lattice. Okay, so you can have holes in the walls, but they just can't move. So you can have holes in the walls, and you can have a short wall. That wall is the minimum requirement of a wall for a sukkah. I don't know if anybody knows, is 39 inches. Okay, 39 inches. That's just over a yard high. That's the height that your sukkah has to be. Now, I don't think most of us are going to have a sukkah that only has walls that are a yard high because you couldn't invite any guests. You would have to only have very little people or children inside that sukkah. So that's the walls. It also, your sukkah has a maximum height. It cannot be higher. The roof cannot be higher than 30 feet off the ground. So it has to be less than 30 feet high. So you saw the wooden beams at the top, and you saw my wall here, and then this open air. What is that? It says, this is really interesting. Halachically, that is considered a solid wall, even though there's air. There's clearly nothing there in the physical world. In the metaphysical world, is considered solid. And it's considered that that roof is attached to that wall. It's like, but it's not, but it is. Okay, so halachically, that space is fine as long as the solid wall is the 39 inches high, and then it can be open air, and then the top. Now, the top has a requirement also. And people ask about that. Said, I thought you have to be able to see the sky. You do not need to see the sky. In fact, the requirement is you have to have more shade than sun. If you don't have more shade than sun, it's actually not a kosher sukkah. And the requirement is that it has to be a natural material. So our slats are all wood, and they all fit into grooves that are on an angle. And you just lift the wood up and you put it back in the slats, and that's how it was constructed. So it has to be natural material. So that has to be wood, or it has to be like palm leaves, or here in Israel, or pine leaves, pine boughs in Colorado, or something like that. It has to be a natural, and it has to be detached. So you can't have a tree hanging over it. You have to cut the branches. It has to be detached, natural substance that covers the top of it. And that's called schach. So the sukkah is defined by its schach and by its walls. So that's the definition of a sukkah. So this is our pergola all year round. So how does it turn into a sukkah? So we had to do something compared to putting up a sukkah. We felt a little embarrassed, but very grateful. The only thing that we had to do was borrow a ladder and lift up 3 of the slats out of their grooves and say, B'Shem Mitzvah Sukkah. For the sake of the mitzvah of making this into a sukkah, we're now putting those slats back in, and now it's a sukkah. If you looked at it with your your external eyes before and after, you would say it looks exactly the same as it was before. But sukkahs is all about the metaphysical. It's all about the metaphysical. And the metaphysical reality is that is no longer right now a pergola. It is now a sukkah. So we changed it and lifted that up. Etta, question.
I thought it could not be permanent.
So it's not the schach, it has to be removable. So all of those beams, that's what made it not permanent, is that we can lift those slats right off. And we reconstituted it by lifting them off and putting them back in. Just like you can use schach from one year to the next. So our sukkah in Denver, have you seen those mats, those bamboo mats? You just roll those up from year to year and you put them on. So you can use them until they're no longer usable. So it doesn't have to be new, like physically new, but it's metaphysically new, and it has to be reconstituted each year. So when I take the mat off and then put it back, that's making a new sukkah. When I lift my slats out and put them back in, that's called making a new sukkah too. So by definition, that's called not permanent. It would be permanent if it was nailed down. So you can't have nails holding it down. Those slats they theoretically could fly off. They could collapse. Anything could happen to them. Those are considered impermanent. The walls can be permanent. That could be a fixed structure. It's only the top that is impermanent. And that's defined by not having it be nailed down. So here in Israel, where it's very windy, or in Denver, where it's rainy or snowy or something like that could happen, it's like this makes it impermanent. You come home, each day, and you're like grateful if your sukkah is still standing because it's not permanent. And so the schach is what makes it not permanent. And yet this sukkah is considered a stronghold. It's considered a stronghold for the Jewish people. And so much so that we're going to talk about how we relate to it and why it makes me happy that something that is, I would say, if I was looking for a secure place to be, it wouldn't be on my balcony there with open air. I wouldn't say, oh, now I feel protected. I'd be like, now I feel vulnerable because it's all open. Okay, so we're going to talk about what that means and how we understand it. Marcia, if you have a question, you want you to unmute.
Okay, got it. I was going to say, I thought the point of the sukkah with the slats and having air is that if it does rain or gets windy or the weather's not perfect, that it is a lesson to us that no matter our station in life, anything can happen to anyone or their family. And that is one of the purposes of that, is to remember that we are all humans, and our wealth does not make us above or protect us from anything. Am I saying it?
You are saying it great, and that is a separate line of thinking that is absolutely valid. The sukkah is the great equalizer, and it is designed for us to recognize the fragility of life, and yet we say that it is the source of our protection and strength, because we call a sukkah a source of protection and strength, of spiritual protection, not physical protection. Okay, not physical protection. Physical protection, I'm obviously vulnerable. The whole sukkah could come down, God forbid, on my head. And it could rain on my head, like the whole thing could blow down, and all of us are in the same boat. But it is considered a source of spiritual protection. And the spiritual protection is what we want to focus on. So we're talking about spiritual protection, and we're going to talk about something else, which is, I think, was like for me a huge one of the huge takeaways for me this year of learning. Patricia, yes.
Where did the idea come from that I've always heard that you should be able to see the stars through the schach?
I don't know. I grew up with that too, but you do not need to be able to see the stars at all. In fact, but what you do need to do is rain has to be able to fall through it. So it can't be so thick that the rain can't fall through, whether or not it rains. But it should be able to come through, which is interesting. Is like we're being forced to live in a place that goes counter our intuition, which is always about, I'm going to make myself safe. I'm going to make myself so nothing can hurt me. And as Marcia said, no such thing. There is no such thing. And so the sukkah is there to prove it. The wind can come, the snow can come, the rain can come, the whole thing, anything can come. And so that's one aspect of feeling the fragility and frailty of life. And just as an aside, what do we read on sukkahs? We read Kohelet. We read Ecclesiastes about, everything. It's unfortunately sometimes translated as vanity. That's not the word. It's ephemeral. Everything in life is ephemeral. And King Solomon wrote this book at his old age after he'd seen everything, had everything, done everything. He was like, I'm telling you all, life is ephemeral no matter what you do. And he ends it by saying, we're here to serve Hashem and to live and be happy with our portion. That's basically why we're here. He goes through a whole book to get you to that point. And he's saying, I've been there, done that, everything. And that's what I can tell you, is life is ephemeral. It's all ephemeral. So when we intentionally, like Patricia raised the question about seeing the stars and whatever, it's mostly that there has to be an opening. There has to be an opening so that we can feel our vulnerability, lest we act the way we do when we're in our house, which is, I don't keep looking up to see if there's going to, God forbid, rain coming in through my ceiling. I don't do that because I feel fine. Like, oh, we have a new apartment. It's solid. I'm fine. Well, now we're going to go in the sukkah and be like, oh, it's a little uncomfortable out here. It's like, and that's okay. We're going out to realize that that's really the true state of our being. So going back to the idea of the sukkah, of what was so interesting for me is you maybe are not familiar that on Friday night during the evening service, there is, we say, Ufros aleinu sukkot shalomecha. We ask God, right, to spread over us a sukkah of peace. Okay, now we just talked about the vulnerability and the fragility and the not even the walls connected to the ceiling, and it could be lattice and there could be holes. And that's the definition of a sukkah. And that's a totally kosher sukkah. Why would I use the metaphor of Hashem spreading over us a sukkah of peace? Why would I use a sukkah to describe the type of peace that we want God to create for us? That sounds a little sketchy. Okay, it's like, why wouldn't I say, build us a fortress of peace, build us a building that is strong and completely solid, and that would be our definition of peace. That's the kind of peace we want. Complete, what do we always ask for? We want a strong, complete, and lasting peace. And guess what our sages teach us? And what the sukkah teaches us? It doesn't have to be that way. Peace is so valuable that even having a little bit of peace is kosher. You have a relationship with somebody and it's, you can kind of get along, but there's not really like a solid peace between you. It's like, that's okay. That's okay. Sit in the sukkah with them. Sit in the sukkah. You don't have to be at total peace with everyone. Not happening. And how much peace can we not be in is like, there can be holes in it. It has to be grounded in something. So it can't be a complete fabrication, but it doesn't have to be. There's agreement. We all are doing great together. It's like, so you're not doing so great together. That's okay. Don't let that stand in your way. It's like when they say, don't let, don't let the desire to be perfect to stand in the way of good enough or something like that. Don't do that. It says, and don't do that with relationships. If you can be a little bit of peace, it's like, okay. And I think all of us probably have family members, friends where we can't say, the family picture looks amazing. It looks like everybody's totally getting along. But if you were to like talk to everybody, it's like not really happening. There's, rough edges there. It's like, that's okay. There can be those spaces. There can be gaps. It's okay. A little bit of peace is so valuable that we say that Hashem should spread over us a sukkah of peace to bring everybody into the sukkah, even though we're not really all getting along. Because people say, oh, if we could only all just get along. We're not getting along. That's okay. Just put it on hold and come into the sukkah together. In the Talmud, it says the Jewish people are really worthy to sit in one sukkah, all of us together. Most of us would say, it's like the joke about the desert island, that they go to the desert island and the man has two shuls, two synagogues. The one he goes to, he's by himself. He built two synagogues, the one he goes to and the one he wouldn't step foot in. So that's the usual joke about the Jewish people. It's like, we're having one sukkah. We can't have one of anything. We can't even have one melody for Adon Olam. How are we having one sukkah? It's like, no, we can actually all be in one sukkah, which is the other idea that Hashem is going to spread this sukkah of shalom over us that we are all invited into. We all get to be there. So in your sukkahs this year, so something have in mind, whether you have a physical sukkah or not, and I don't know if everybody is privileged to have a sukkah, but the sukkah in your mind of the space that we make for other people. And you can say, my sukkah with that person is even the walls. How much wall do you have to even have for a sukkah? Ideally, if you were building a house, which is sukkah supposed to be, you would have 4 walls to make a sukkah. Well, what about if you have 3 walls? Okay, 3 walls is good. Well, what about if you have 2 walls? It's like, 2 walls is pretty kind of hard to say you even have a room, that you have like a corner. So what's the halacha? It has to be 2 plus a handbreadth of a third. Now, I would say that's pretty minimal. That's like just barely there. So our sukkah is like barely there and can be a kosher sukkah. A kosher sukkah can have 2 walls plus a handbreadth of a third wall, is just as valid as 4 walls. A sukkah that has 39-inch wall in height and there's a huge gap between it and the roof, 100% kosher, and not like, okay, we'll let it go. It's like, no, that is halachically is a wall. And we don't say, in fact, there's a story about a little boy asking his father, their sukkah was like vandalized. And it had, like slats or things like that. And the little boy said, how did they get in? And it's like, through the openings. But in his mind, it was like, no, the wall is actually solid. So there's a halacha concept of things being attached to something that is, to our eyes, unattached. I'll give you an example that comes from Shabbos observance. So one of the things we don't do on Shabbos is to carry seeds over dirt. You don't carry seeds over dirt. Why, you might think? So lest they come to drop into the dirt and then to sprout and start growing. But what if you could say, I promise you not one seed would get out of my hand or my container. I'm walking over the dirt and no seed is going to come out. Is that it doesn't matter whether it actually drops or not. The seed, as soon as it is over dirt, it has a metaphysical connection to the dirt. It's already as if it was already in the dirt, whether you drop it or not. It's like, just thinking about like the world is designed in a way that we don't fully grasp. Sukkot is our most metaphysical holiday, even though at the same time, it's our most earthy holiday. Metaphysical and earthy at the same time. So the first idea about the sukkah is that it's connection to peace, and the peace that we want to have in our communities, in our families, with ourselves. Because when you go into a sukkah, you go all the way in. Other mitzvahs you can do with just parts of your body. If you're lighting candles, you're using your hands and your eyes. If you're drinking Kiddush wine, you're using your mouth and your voice to say Kiddush. When you go in a sukkah, it's an all-in experience. It's like going into the mikveh. So it's all in. So when we talk about gathering people into our sukkah, we bring them in their totality, we bring them in, and we don't look at the compartmentalization of what parts we like, don't like, agree with, and disagree with. We just bring them in. Just bring them in. And the sukkah is big enough. And we don't have to say that it's perfect. It's just the sukkah of peace. And having that mindset of who do I need to have a sukkah of peace, and understand that my sukkah may be one that has short walls. It may only have 2 and a little bit walls. It may be something that looks to my eye like it's not really good enough. And yet halachically, it's considered good and valuable and holy and kosher. Okay. Any questions about that, about just the structure and what we learn from that, of the piece? Okay. All right. Next idea. Yes, Marcia.
And why the seeds can't fall, if they just fall out of the whatever the container they're in, and they go in the ground and start, what is wrong with that?
That's planting. That's one of the forbidden.
Still planting.
It's called planting. It's planting even if they don't fall in. By just carrying it over the dirt, it's as if they planted it. Even if it's like, you could swear that you could say they were hermetically sealed inside a can. It's like, no, you carried them over dirt. Those seeds are in the dirt at a metaphysical level. Fascinating.
So, yes, absolutely.
Let's see. Does the roof need to be connected at some point to the walls or just above it? Very good question. It needs to be, good question. I don't know how to answer that question. I know ours is considered connected to the sides because there are posts, but it doesn't have to be connected all the way. So it's connected on the sides. So because obviously you can't have a freestanding roof. So if it's connected, it has to be above the wall. So therefore it has to be connected at some point. So, but it can be just like on the four corners of the two corners. It doesn't have to be a solid. It doesn't have to be obviously a full connection because it's open above the walls, but it does have to be over it for sure. Has to be over it for sure. Anything that's not covered with the roof is considered not part of the sukkah.
Here's my puppy sheet.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you again, okay? Mute everybody.
Please.
Okay. All right. Okay, the next thing that I want to talk that's so important is these days from Yom Kippur to Sukkot. What are these days? It's like, we're not in Yom Kippur, we're not in Sukkot, we're getting ready for Sukkot. What are these days? And how does it fit in with the Day of Judgment and that we had for Rosh Hashanah and all of the forgiveness that we got on Yom Kippur and our accounting and our record and our book of life and all these things? Like, where are we now? So it's very interesting. This time between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, it says our account doesn't start yet. Our account doesn't start yet. It's like we're off the grid here. We're off the grid for these few days. Why is that? It says Yom Kippur. I don't know how your Yom Kippur was. I hope it was meaningful. But even just the fasting takes something out of you. Just even if you fast well, your body is depleted of energy. And certainly with not drinking, whether you're in Colorado or in Israel, you are depleted. Says, and going through the thing and, confessing sins and all of that, unless you're completely asleep to the whole process, it kind of takes a lot out of us. Going from the Day of Judgment to Yom Kippur and the fasting and just the standing and up and down the services, the whole thing, and that length of service, all of those things is considered draining. And it says we have been through something. And the metaphor that's given is it's like a patient who has been in the hospital going through a surgery to get rid of some sort of a growth, God forbid, malignant growth. And they went through some sort of medication, like God forbid, chemo or something like that, which took care of the cells and took care of the thing that was the problem, but it also wipes out the patient. And so what happens is like, I can't start holding you accountable. This is me talking for God. I can't, and I don't want to start holding you accountable until you regain your strength. It's not fair. It's like, first you need to regain your strength. And what will help you regain your strength? To do something fun, to do something concrete, do something that is going to bring joy, because joy and happiness gives people energy. Okay. I'm going to give you a few days to recoup before I start looking at anything that you're doing for the new year. So what we're doing during these few days, starting on Sunday night through Friday night until Sukkah starts, is that this is all of recouping our energy, our emotional energy, our physical energy, our spiritual energy, because we have been on the side of scrutinizing ourselves. And even if we are very high opinion of ourselves, it's still a little challenging to just keep thinking about and talking about all the things that are challenging for us. This is like, now we need to go to the other side. They do this, just even like therapeutically, is you can't spend all day in therapy. At some point, you need to like go out and go shopping or go out for coffee or go to falafel. You need to do something fun and give yourself a break. So that's what these days are for. So I luckily got to do that today and really big. Steve went into Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem with our son to get lulav and etrog amongst the crowd of people. And I got to be with my little granddaughter. We went to a mall with crowds and crowds of people, buying lulav and etrogs and buying new outfits and jewelry and eating and having iced coffee. The iced coffee line was so long. That was the longest line in the whole place. And just have fun. And it says you're supposed to be ach sameach. nothing but joyous. But we can't turn on a dime. We can't go straight from Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur, and I'm starving and I'm tired and my feet are swollen, to, oh, now I'm happy. It's like, no, there needs to be a transition time. And that transition time is the preparation for Sukkot. And we're supposed to be busying ourselves with all of that. And it's to help us so that we can start with our best foot forward on Sukkot. So when does our record open, our book of accounting for this coming year? It opens on Sukkot. So it says, this is great. This means that we get to start when we are at our happiest, best, and restored place. And that is what's happening during these days. So we're supposed to use these days to think about Sukkot, think about what's making us happy, physically and spiritually and emotionally, and cultivate those things so that we can be in the proper frame of mind to have Sukkot. So that's what's happening at this time, because Sukkot represents, and this is the third point, the convergence of two different calendar cycles. On one hand, it's considered the end of the high holiday season. All the things you said, I'll do it after the holidays. What did you mean? After Rosh Hashanah, after Yom Kippur, after Sukkot. And we're including Simchas Torah in the Sukkot thing. So it goes Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot is the final thing in the high holidays. And that's all in this very spiritual level. Then it's also the final holiday of the three pilgrimage festivals that started with Pesach, Pesach of the spring, and Shavuot of the summer, but the first harvest there for the wheat. And then we come to Sukkot and the final fall harvest. So we have the end and the end are coming together, but we have two different categories because the agricultural things are all about very earthly things. Planting and harvesting and winnowing and all those terms, I don't even know what they are, unless you're agricultural, whatever, all those things, it's all of that. So we've got that string, and then we have the spiritual string, which is the Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. So we have the Sukkah, which is the convergence of both of those calendars coming together, because the Sukkah itself represents, the holiday is called Chag HaAsif, which is the harvest holiday. And it's also the Sukkah celebrates the Anane HaKavod, the clouds of glory that miraculously and mysteriously protected the Jewish people for 40 years while they were in the desert. So we have something that is supernatural, and then we have something that is super regular natural, all coming together on Sukkot. And the truth is that's what makes us happy, is when we can appreciate the convergence of both our spiritual lives and our physical lives. When we can have things that give us physical pleasure and spiritual pleasure together. Yom Kippur was the opposite. We did things that was like to stay away from things that give us physical pleasure. No eating, no drinking, no anointing ourselves, no marital relations, no wearing leather, none of those things, like only spiritual. When we get to Sukkot, it's like bringing it all together, because that's what life is all about. If you notice, Yom Kippur lasts for 1 day and Sukkot lasts for 7. Okay. Rosh Hashanah is 2 days, Yom Kippur is 1 day, Sukkot is 7 days, because that's the real world. That's the world we want to be in all the time. The other thing that Sukkot does, the next piece, is that it weans us from a purely spiritual place. This is like, what do you do? You're like, you've had a spiritual high. Sometimes people have said this, even when I have to say, women have said this after they've come back from the women's trip to Israel. It's hard to come back. And that was being away like a week. And then you come back to your regular life. It's like, not quite sure what to do with this. Even if you go to a spa, you go someplace where you've had kind of a little bit of an otherworldly experience, but then to come back to your life feels a little traumatizing, because I don't really want to totally come back. So is that Sukkot weans us from the high of the high holidays down to what our regular life is going to be like, really. And we have this intermediate stage where we're outside in a sukkah, that has mostly a kind of quasi-physical, spiritual status, and we spend some time there, it's like being in transition, so we don't get the spiritual bends. Otherwise, how do we come back? Because what we want to do is to be able to integrate everything that we have gained from our high holiday experience and put it into real world practical application. And how are we going to do that? It says we practice in the sukkah. So the sukkah is like the, I won't say detox place because that has a negative connotation. That's our, where you go so you don't get the bends. It's like where you go to kind of have a both experience of physical and spiritual, to be able to then transition afterwards to go back inside our homes, hopefully at a higher level. So we want to use the opportunity to do that. How are we going to do that? So let's go back to the moment for the sukkah and the being in there as far as the place for peace. To be in a sukkah for peace, it says one of the visualizations, we talked about visualizations last week. One of the visualizations for the sukkah is to imagine yourself, whether you're in a sukkah, a physical sukkah, or you don't have a physical sukkah, but hopefully everyone has a chance to be in one at some point, is to imagine everybody in your sukkah. The people you know, the people you don't know, the Jewish people who you think you have nothing in common with, the people that you think you do have everything in common with. I have to say, being here in Israel, I see Jewish people of all sorts of stripes, and there's some that are, from the way they're dressed, I'm like, I have trouble relating to this because they look so different, even for me, and I look different than other people. But it's very hard. We are sidelined by people's physical presence or what they observe or what they don't observe, whatever it might be. It says we need to bring everybody into the sukkah and picture the entire Jewish people. Now, the entire Jewish people is a little hard. So it says start in your own neighborhood. Picture everybody you know, the people from other shuls coming into your sukkah, your friends who you don't agree with coming into your sukkah. Imagine just being able to bring everybody in. And that's the kavana. When this happens, says we make a sukkah of peace. That's actually creating a sukkah of peace, is to visualize everybody in the sukkah with us. Because if you ever notice, a sukkah tends to be a cramped place. Nobody's sukkah is ever big enough for the number of people they have. Everybody's sitting squished. It's like, but that's the beauty of it. It's like you can't not be friendly in a sukkah because you're smushed together. So like bring everybody in. If there's still room in your sukkah, that means you didn't quite get it right. So still like bring more people into your sukkah. So the kavana is to bring everybody into your sukkah and imagine yourself connected to each of those people. So I'll tell you something about connection. This wasn't like everybody in the world, but you know, Israel is our homeland, but it is a foreign country. And there are so many things that have been so new that are still new that we don't know what we're doing. And then there are some things that are so known because of being Jewish. So we were in our new little synagogue for Yom Kippur. There are people there from Hungary, from South Africa, England, different parts of the United States, all over the place. And yet when it came to sing Avinu Malkeinu on Yom Kippur, now if you go to any kind of a traditional synagogue, you'll probably be familiar with this melody. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Okay, everybody know that, recognize that melody? I didn't have to wonder for 1 second, oh, I wonder how they're going to sing Avinu Malkeinu. It's like out of everyone's mouth came that. I was like started to cry, just like, never mind what it said about Avinu Malkeinu. I was like so over excited about the fact that we were all singing the same song. Like that is the beauty of the Jewish people, because when it comes down to it, we really are all pretty much doing the same thing. So we're all having sukkahs. We're all having sukkahs. It might look a little different, even within the Jewish people. For example, in Chabad, they do not decorate their sukkahs. They don't decorate. They think that from their perspective, that the beauty of the mitzvah of the sitting in the sukkah stands on its own, and you don't need the distraction of like glitzy things. Then you have the non-Chabad. It was like the decorations they sell here is like Christmas decorations. They've got the lights and the baubles and like all this stuff, like all this glitzy stuff and decorating. And it's like, no, you're beautifying the mitzvah and you want to make it even more, more fancy than just the plain sukkah. So it's like, and which one of them is right? They're both right. And if you go to a Chabad sukkah, you say, what a beautiful mitzvah to sit in your sukkah. And if you go to a non-Chabad sukkah, you say, what a beautiful way you've enhanced this mitzvah. And guess what? You don't have to say that one of them is right and one of them is wrong and one of them doesn't belong in your sukkah. So it's like, it's all good. They're all in the sukkah. So that's the kavana, that's the mindset, is to bring everybody into the sukkah. How else can we be helped to do this? It says we have something very special that happens at Sukkot, which is that in addition to all the people we're inviting in, when we make it a place where other people are invited in, there are 7 other people who are going to join us. The 7 people who are joining us simultaneously, it's like ways. Those people can be in everybody's sukkah at the same time. I was using Waze today when we were driving to Yerushalayim, and it said like 1,100 Wazers around you. I'm like, how is that possible? That Waze can give me my specific instructions to know where I should turn, stay left, and it's telling everybody else at the same time. It's like, and it never says I'm too busy to give you directions because I'm too busy telling everybody else. Okay, you sang the same melody at Temple Emmanuel. All right, I love it. There's a place for tradition here. It's like, so when you go someplace else, or you can even think, I'm singing the same song as everybody else. It's great. Okay, so we are going to have what are called the 7 ushpizin, the 7 guests, the 7 shepherds who come to our sukkah. We invite them in. It's in your siddur. It's in, if you have any kind of a traditional siddur, I don't know if all siddurs have them, but there is an invitation that they are coming into your sukkah. Sukkot is the only holiday that these people come to. They didn't come to your Seder. They're not coming for, you think they'd show up for Shavuos, right? Getting the Torah, I think we'll come down and be with them for that. No, at the Seder, no. They only come one time a year, and that is that they come at Sukkot. Why do they come? And what's the significance of them coming in? Why do they come then? This is because we've already described our sukkah is a place that isn't totally in this world. We already described it's a metaphysical building. I'm calling it a building. It wouldn't pass any building code criteria ever. Oh, this is my new building. It only has 2 walls and a handbreadth, but yeah, it's a building. And these are the walls. They only go up 39 inches, but no problem. It's not really connected to the roof, but no problem. It's like that passes no standards whatsoever of the physical world. And yet we're not told we'll just go out in the open air and just sit there, because that's not realistic. So our definition of realistic is metaphysically realistic. It's like it has a physical structure. It's not just the structure that you would define normally as a structure. So when we have that kind of place and we are in the time, so even if you're not in a sukkah, these people are still coming, but in the sukkah specifically, we invite them in. And who do we invite in? The 7 shepherds, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, Moshe, Aaron, Joseph, and King David. Okay, so those are the 7. And those are the people, says like, why are those people the ones who are invited? Those are called the 7 shepherds, who are associated with the 7 mystical, the 7 sefirot, the 7 spheres, the mystical tree of life. Andy, question.
Go over the names again, please.
Yes. So you'll know them. So we have our 3 patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then our next couple, Moses and Aaron. And then Joseph, Tzaddik, Joseph the righteous one, and King David.
Thank you.
Sure. Each of those people are associated with what we know are one of the 7 sefirot. So you can make, again, this is in your siddur, a siddur that you have. Abraham is associated with chesed, with kindness. Yitzchak, Isaac, is associated with gevura, which is about restraint and definition. Yaakov, Jacob, is associated with harmony, beauty, the beauty that comes from being in harmony. Moses is associated with endurance. It's called nitzchiyut, the ability to withstand and to endure. Endurance. Aaron is associated with the quality of hod, which is to be yielding, the soft side. Yosef is about integrity. It's called yesod. And King David is malchut, is about self-sovereignty, kingship. These people were not just people, although they were people. They were people who were considered to be ones who represent the tikkun, the repair or the manifestation of those qualities in our world. They're showing up at Sukkot, number one, because it's a holy space in this metaphysical space. They're showing up for another reason, which is because we are ach sameach. We are only happy, and in a happy place, these people show up. And they're showing up because we have work to do on Sukkot. And the work that we're doing is we are building ourselves, just like we build a sukkah. What is a sukkah? It's a manifestation of ourselves. I'm rebuilding me after the high holidays. All those sins I confessed and the new life that Hashem gave me, what's it going to look like? I need to build it. So I build myself, and who's going to show me how to build myself? What am I made up of? This is why I'm made up of these different qualities. I need to learn. And Abraham's coming down. It's like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to manifest for you chesed, kindness. And Isaac comes down, I'm going to manifest for you gevura. And each of them comes down on their own day to be an example, which is why we're supposed to talk about them, invite them, be close. Because guess what? The people you hang around with, that's who you become like. It's like, who did you hang around with at Sukkot? Oh, I had really nice guests. I had Abraham, Isaac. Can you imagine if you told your friends? Guess who I had at my table? I had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they'll say, well, so did I. But let's say they didn't say that. You'd be like, you must be pretty special to have those people at your home. It's like, yes, you are. Because the main thing we need to know is, look who you are. Look who's coming to your sukkah. The greatest of the greats. But they're not just coming there to be fancy so you can name drop. They're coming to teach us by their example. Because otherwise, it's a little hard to create something if you don't have any directions. And God doesn't do IKEA, where you just open it up and you have like a little drawing and you're like, oh, I hope this goes together. It's like, I'm sending you help. I'm sending you the shepherds to show you the way. I'm sending you the greatest people. And of course, in that, when you invite your guests, a beautiful thing to do is to tell your guests who are in your sukkah what you value and appreciate about them, how they show you the way in something. You are such a great example of fill in the blank. Enthusiasm, stick-to-itiveness, resilience, kindness, diligence, whatever it is. Everybody is here to be able to teach us something. What are we learning from the people who are in our lives? And to tell them that, because that's what we're trying to bring in. We're trying to build ourselves, and we need to have living models of how to do that. So we have the 7 Ushpizin. So they came into the world to manifest this for all of us and for us to learn from them. And then to emulate and to think about these things. These were the same things we talked about during the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. For 49 days, we had a week for each one. Now we have one day for each one, but hopefully it's a little bit of a memory from what we had at the beginning of the season, which was the mark from Pesach to Shavuot. So you see that these people and these qualities are woven together throughout the 3 pilgrimage festivals. We started from Pesach, we started counting Sfirat HaOmer, and we went through the 7 Sfirot until we got to Shavuot. And now we're doing it at Sukkot. We're talking about the same things. So each of the 3 pilgrimage holidays has a connection to the 7 Sfirot. And they each Pesach is a 7-day holiday in Israel, and Sukkot is a 7-day holiday. And between Pesach and Shavuot, we're 7 weeks. So all the sevens of the sevens of the sevens keep circling around and around and around us. It's like the 7 Sefirot. But now it's like they didn't come down to us at Pesach. They didn't come down to us at Shavuot, but they are coming to a sukkah near you on Sukkot to be able to be with us and to be that example. In addition to that, we are going to have the lulav and etrog, which is another set of 7. This is because we're trying to build ourselves. And those 7 pieces of the lulav and etrog are also connected to those same 7 people. So here's the connection to them. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the 3 myrtle leaves, the hadass. There are 3 branches of those. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are them. And then save space because we're going to add something else to it. Moses and Aaron are the 2 willows. Joseph is the lulav itself. And King David is the etrog. So now they're visiting my sukkah, and I'm now going to hold them in my hands. Okay, this is a very literally hands-on workshop. I'm trying to build myself. I'm sitting with you, I'm holding you. And how do we do it? Is like we hold them together and you say the blessing over to putting them together. You shake them in all 6 directions: east, north, west, and south, up and down. And when you shake them out and you bring them into your heart. Shake out, bring into your heart 3 times. Each direction is 3 times. 1 or 3 shakes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Back. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Bringing into me. This is about integrating. That's the idea. I'm holding this together. The angels, no, there are not angels in the sukkah. The angels are not here. These are the actual people. No malachim. So, I mean, our angels are always with us. So I shouldn't really say that. Your angels are always with you, except when you go into the bathroom, which is why we're not supposed to stay there so long. So your angels are always there, but they aren't specifically coming into the sukkah. I mean, they're coming with you because they're always with you, but the guests are coming in. So we also have to think about how do we behave if we have illustrious guests? Clearly, if Moses and Aaron were really at your table, what do you think you'd be talking about? How would you be behaving? How would you be dressed? What kind of conversation would you have? It might be a little different than what we normally are doing. We would probably try to raise it up a notch. This is to be very mindful. The shaking. So Gabi, it's in all 6 directions, starting east, north, west, and south, up and down. And you hold the lulav and etrog, and you extend your arm. You can't really see it here. You extend your arm and bring it in, extend your arm, bring it in, extend your arm and bring it in 3 times. Now, different people have different customs about that. So consult your local rabbi. But the main idea is you have shaking it and bringing it in, because the idea is integration. We're trying to integrate these people into us. And it also stands for parts of our body. So when you think about the parts of our body that get us in trouble, or where our mistakes, how they got made, or what parts of our body we use when we make those mistakes. How does that happen? It says usually it's going to be our eyes, our mouth, our emotions, our heart, our decision-making, and our integrity. And so we take that too. So the eyes are the myrtle, the same thing as the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Our eyes have that. East, north, correct. Go to the left. East, north, west, south, correct. And you face east while you're doing it. So you face east and start east, and you go around in a circle that way. So your eyes are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then the lips, I'm sorry, yes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but that's our eyes. Then the arava, the willows are our lips, and you notice that the lips are closed. Especially if you look at the willow, there's a line with closed lips of not speaking Lashon Hara. And then we have the heart, which is the etrog, and then the lulav itself, which is the spine, representing our integrity, our moral integrity. So when we take that, it's like, I want to put myself back together again. So I've looked at where I've had my challenges, and maybe one of those places is more than another. We want to try to bring it all back together again. So as I shake the lulav and the etrog, I'm thinking about how can I rebuild myself? How can I get these things all balanced back together the way they should function in a healthy way? So in a way, looking at the lulav and etrog is like looking at an x-ray of ourselves, a spiritual x-ray. Here's my mouth, here are my eyes, here's my spine, here's my heart. How do I want them to operate? Andy, did you have a question? I see you're unmuted.
What's the main reason or purpose of 3 times? Is there a,
We tend to do things that's called a chazaka, like chazak means strong, just like 3 times. That's
Okay.
just,
thank you.
yeah, sure,
3 times each direction?
correct. But you do it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You go all around 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, you don't go 3 times around. You do each direction in and out, in and out, in and out 3 times. Yeah. Okay. And it's also, and then some people do all sorts of interesting things. If you're ever in the synagogue, you see people with their lulav and etrog. Some people have like a little bounce to it and a little like they're bowing for it. So those are all individual customs that I'm not aware of, but basically the basics is the 3 times in and out. So basically what I'm trying to do, the main thing is what we're trying to do is to reintegrate ourselves after we have gone through the process of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and I'm reconstituting myself, my body, my soul, my qualities. This is that's my goal, that I'm trying to get myself back together, literally and figuratively. And Hashem gives us these tools to help us. And finally, how does this all make us feel? It says we're supposed to be ach sameach, nothing but happy. It says nothing, only besimcha, ach sameach. It says what is it that makes us happy? It says something that makes us happy is the ability to live in a world that is fragmented and appears to be either spiritual or physical, but probably not both, and to be able to say it's both of them together. I'm happy to live in a world that is physically fragile and spiritually strong. I'm happy that God is running my life. I'm happy with my life. So when this has to do with the harvest festival is when we have a harvest and we say, I'm very happy with what I have. Where's the other place that we see about happiness is in Pirkei Avot, in Ethics of the Fathers. It says, Ezehu sameach, Ezehu ashir, who is a person who is wealthy? Hasameach b'chalko, the person who is happy with their portion, with their section, what they have in the world. It's very easy when you have a harvest to go look in the next person's sukkah and see what their harvest is. What did they get? Human nature to put our eyes on other people's plates. And sukkahs is about hasameach b'chalko, the person who is rejoicing with what they have. And here's the greatest thing of all, is the ability to be basimcha, to really have that happiness over what we have, is the antidote to most of the things that we have done wrong in the previous year. What's the root cause? It says, like, when we think about trying to do teshuvah, like to try to get back on track, our mistakes that we have made usually come from places either of, wrote these down, arrogance, a desire for honor, a desire just for things. I just want more stuff. Anger, jealousy. So all of those things, that's what leads us to speak Lashon Hara, to take things that don't belong to us, to do things in an inappropriate way. It says those are the causes. What's the antidote? A person who is samech b'chelko, if I'm totally grateful for everything I have, I don't have any jealousy or competitiveness with another person. I wouldn't dream of taking something that belonged to you because I'm happy with what I have. I'm not looking for honor because I already have whatever honor God wanted me to have, I have. So it is the magic. It's, people are always looking like, what's the one thing that would like solve all the problems? It says, Hasamech b'chalko. If everyone could be Hasamech b'chalko, the world would be b'shalom. The world would be at peace. It's just that we're having such a hard time getting there. Being Samech b'chalko, of happy and joyful with our portion, means that we recognize that Hashem is running the world. The same one who is in charge of my physical well-being and my spiritual well-being is the same one who is running the show. And I'm happy to be in the show. I'm happy to be in the sukkah. And I am ach samech. I'm nothing but happy about that. It says we have to practice that, though. It's not our natural state. And it's not a natural state starting at about, I don't know what, 12 months old. As soon as a child sees that somebody else has a bigger hot dog, a bigger cookie, a not broken cookie, we all know this, either from ourselves or little children that we've seen or adults. I didn't get my fair share. I want to be served first. How come they got the honor? How come they got to sit in that place? It doesn't really change. And the antidote to all of that is to be samech b'chalko. When we realize that all of those things are so fleeting, we wouldn't attach so much importance to them. As was said at the very beginning, the sukkah is the great equalizers. As Marcia said, the great equalizer. We're really all in the same boat. We just think that we're not. I thought my boat was bigger than yours, or I thought my boat was smaller, but it turns out actually we're all in the same boat. We're all in the sukkah boat. That's the truth of the matter. That is the absolute truth of the matter. When I realize that, then I can really be samech b'chalko. It's like we're all in the same boat. And when we're all in the same boat, that means I care more about you because I know how vulnerable you are. So it's interesting, I've had trouble with my wrist and I've been using. So my daughter told me that her daughter's friend fell at school and broke her wrist. Now, I have to tell you, I would, of course, over them and say, oh, that's too bad. But can I tell you that my hand immediately went to my wrist because my wrist is in so much pain? I was like, oh, that poor thing, because my wrist hurts. And so when I heard that she broke her wrist, it was like literally I could feel it in my bones. I'm like, oh, that poor thing. So when we realize we're in the same boat, we care more about how other people are doing in the boat because we're all in the same boat. So we're all in the same sukkah. So we started out by saying that the Jewish people are really all worthy of sitting in one sukkah. But I think it's more than that, is that when we realize we're really all in the same sukkah, and we are really all experiencing the fragility of the physical world and the gift of spiritual greatness of being created in the image of God and being given, God willing, another year of good health, a year of being alive, we will treat each other much more carefully and much more lovingly so that we can sit in the sukkah together, b'shalom. So these are just a few things to think about on each of the days of Sukkot. We will not have class next Wednesday because it's Sukkot, and we're going to be out at I'll just share this with you. Our son and daughter-in-law had an idea to have an alumni gathering at their yeshiva for families, because everybody's on vacation. Kids are not in school. Everyone's on vacation. Everyone's traveling. Wherever they are, that's not where they want to be. They want to be someplace else. Everyone's looking for fun things to do. So they decided to have a family fun day. My husband just told me that they have 500 people coming, like with jumpy things and a pet animal show and a magic show and refreshments. So we're actually going to help. I said, we'll do anything, just like pick up trash, whatever it is. 500 people makes big mess. So I said, we want to see your vision come to life and we want to help. So that's where I'm going to be next Wednesday. So we're going to be out doing that and being Ach Sameach with all of that. But we will resume the following Wednesday, God willing. And I want to wish you and tell you that what makes me Ach Sameach, that makes me so happy, is to be able to share these ideas with you and to share even just like the picture of our apartment and our balcony, and to think about all of you here. And I wish you could all be here and share this with me in person. And hopefully it won't be too long before you are here and you do. And I want to thank Carol again for sponsoring our class today. It should be an aliyah for your mother's neshama and Miro Bat Moshe. And that hopefully that our joy, she gets credit for any extra joy and happiness. She gets credit for that too. So her place should just go higher and higher. And I wish you all a continued Shana Tova and an early Chag Sameach. It should be really nothing but happy and joyful. And Hashem really should spread over us a Sukkat Shalom, a sukkah of peace, and that we will be able to sit Bishalom and have a sukkah that is a kosher sukkah of the highest order, even if for now we're in a sukkah that is kosher and is good, and we can realize how beautiful and successful it is to have even a little piece of peace. Have a wonderful
Thank
Yasher
you,
koach.
Helen. Yasher koach. Great.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
That was
Bravo.
wonderful.
Very
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Thank
Bravo,
you.
bravo.
Thank you all.
Thank
Ellen,
you.
before you leave, can you show me what you mean in and out when you shake? I have to see your hands, but I don't see more than your neck. And
I'm
up.
sorry. Can you make me the full picture on your computer?
I'm on my phone. That's a problem. How do I?
Thank
Ah,
you. We will
Okay,
just-
so can you see my hands, Gabby?
Yes.
Okay, so picture that the lulav's in my hand. Okay, the lulav and etrog are in my hand. So when I go out and in, out and in, out and in.
So that's one direction.
That's one direction. And I'm going to
Okay,
repeat
so-
that in every other direction.
Okay, because you said in and out, and that's why I thought out first. Yeah, perfect.
I apologize. That's very confusing. Out and in, out and in.
Ellen? don't
Yes,
for-
thank you very much. I apologize.
No, nothing to
Um,
apologize. Thank you.
Yes,
You-
Carol.
Yeah,
3 times.
so tell Gabriella that you say the bracha with the pitum up, I think. And then after the bracha, you turn it upside down, right?
The
Right, so that
opposite.
I know.
The opposite. Actually, the pitom is
opposite.
down for the bracha, and then you turn the
Turn it
pitom
up.
up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I forget which one is the pitom. That's my problem.
Pitom is the little thing that looks like Horton Hears a Who. The little, it's really the flower from the etrog.
So wait, is that brown or green?
It could be
It's
any
like a-
color. It's not the stem. It's the opposite of the stem end. You'll know
Okay.
it's at the bottom. It what's look like the bottom. And so when you say the bracha, you have the pitom pointing down, and then after the bracha, you point it up.
Okay, that's the thing that I always forget which one is the pitom. So, because it's 2 things on both sides. One is
One's the stem and one's the pitom. But the stem won't be on it usually. The stem's usually not on, but you can tell the stem end, like you can tell the stem end of a lemon. You can tell which end had the stem.
okay. So the pitom, when you say the bracha, the pitom is down.
Down.
Then
Down.
after the bracha up. Is that right?
Yes. Then you point it up. Thank you, Carol. That's helpful.
And the stem, so the stem in the beginning is up and then down. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you so much. This is because I like to, everyone that comes in the sukkah, I like to teach them, and I don't want to teach wrong. So that's so important that I am sure which one is the pitom. And thank you. It was
Yes.
fascinating
Now-
class.
Now I
Fascinating.
have to
about
tell you,
things.
I just have to tell you that also you can also get an etrog that doesn't have a pitom on it. So some people get them that don't have a pitom because if the pitom falls off, you can't use it. You can't use the etrog. So some people We got one, since we don't have little children, we got one that does have a pitom on it. But I tell you, it reminds me of like Horton Hears a Who, because it's like this little thing, and it's like a little whirl, like don't fall off, because then you can't use the etrog. But you can get etrogim that do not have pitoms to start, and then that's fine. If it didn't come with a pitom, then you don't have to worry about it. And some places just sell them without pitom, so you don't have to worry about it. But it's nice to have a pitom if it's not going to be a problem. And so
if it came without, it's okay. But if it falls in the middle of Sukkot, I cannot do the bracha anymore.
I believe that's, let me just ask Steve who's walking by, is that correct? You can't say the bracha, you can't use it after if the pitom falls off. Correct.
Hi,
Yeah.
Steve.
That's Gabi.
Chag Sameach. That was so fascinating. The Sukkot Shalom. I never thought of that. Where does it say about Sukkot Shalom? I forgot.
Mariv of Friday night.
Oh, okay. That's why
Ufros aleinu sukkot shalomecha. God will spread over us a canopy of peace.
Sukkot Shalom. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I thought that was really
Yeah. How do we bring peace in the world? And you're giving us a solution, the Sukkot.
like,
I
just
think
don't
that-
have such high don't have such high expectations. Don't be like such an, see, I'm much more of an all or nothing, I want to be like, it's not totally right, so I because that's human nature also, is to look for what's missing. But see, when we do that, I think this ties back to, so I'm glad some of you are still here, that this ties back to Hasameach b'chalko, of being happy and grateful for the portion, the chelek, that you do have. So, okay, so it's not 100%. I don't have every single, I'm not going to have every single thing, physical possession in the world. King Solomon already told me it's not going to make you happy anyway, because those things, that's not their nature, because true happiness is really a spiritual state of mind. It can never, ever be physically satisfied. So you don't even try. That's what he's trying to tell us. Don't even try. I'm telling you, I've been there. It doesn't work. Don't we kind of like, sadly, like when we read about somebody who's very rich and famous and they're unhappy, to like, they're rich and famous and they're still unhappy. What do you think about that? It's like, okay, so we can skip the rich and famous, and then we don't have to think that that's going to be the key to happiness, because it's not. The simcha is an internal place. Sameach is considered a contraction of two words, sham moach. There is my mind. It is a mental state of being.
Wow.
It's not defined by anything.
Amazing. And what you told us, I did tell some people that we have it all upside down. Rosh Hashanah, everyone is happy, apples and honey, but it's really courtroom. And then Yom Kippur actually was a very joyous experience for me, because there were beautiful melodies. It was amazing.
It is very joyful. And it's also intense. It's also intense. And now we get to have like the joy without the intensity. So now we kind of transition. So now I'm going to go on to joy and go have dinner with my husband.
Yay! Oh, it's late. Okay, Beteavon. Chag Sameach. Thank you for elevating us always. And
thank you for joining me. Yes, not next week, in 2 weeks.
Lots of love and gratitude, because you elevate us every week. And I needed that. I'm sure everyone else did too. Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to Carol for sponsoring. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carol.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.